Wednesday, May 3, the Messiah cut off. Gabriel began this 490-year prophecy with an event that was extremely important to Daniel and to the Jews, the command to restore and build Jerusalem. Though various decrees had been passed regarding Jerusalem in Ezra 7, we discover that the decree passed in 457 BC allowed the Jews not only to return to their homeland, but also to establish themselves as a religious community. As we read in Ezra 7, verse 13, I issue a decree that all those of the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites in my realm who volunteer to go up to Jerusalem may go with you. And verse 27, Blessed be the Lord God of our fathers, who has put such a thing as this in the king's heart, to beautify the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem. It is significant to note that the Artaxerxes decree was issued in the autumn of 457 BC. From this decree in 457 BC to the Messiah, according to Daniel, would be 69 weeks or 483 years. If we begin at 457 BC and move forward on history's timeline, we arrive at AD 27. The word Messiah means the Anointed One. In AD 27, Jesus Christ, the Messiah, was baptized, as we read in Matthew 3, verses 13 to 17. Then Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan to be baptized by him. And John tried to prevent him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and you are coming to me. But Jesus answered and said to him, Permit it to be so now, for thus it is fitting for us to fulfill all righteousness. Then he allowed him. When he had been baptized, Jesus came up immediately from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting upon him. And suddenly a voice came from heaven saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Daniel predicted hundreds of years in advance the exact year for the baptism of Christ, the time at which Jesus would begin his 3.5 years of ministry. Read Romans 5, verses 6 to 9, along with Daniel 9:26. What great truths are revealed here. First we'll read Daniel 9:26. And after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with a flood, and till the end of war desolations are determined. Romans 5, beginning at verse 6. For when we were still without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. For scarcely for a righteous man will one die, yet perhaps for a good man someone might even dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love toward us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Much more then, having now been justified by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him. And after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself, it said in Daniel 9:26. The Messiah would be cut off or crucified. The verse adds, but not for himself. In other words, the death of Christ on Calvary's cross was for us, not for himself, which is why Paul could write in verse 8 of chapter 5 in Romans, but God demonstrates his own love toward us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. In Daniel 9:27, we read that in the middle of the week, the last 7 years, Christ would bring an end to sacrifice and offering. In the middle of his 70th week, in AD 31, Christ confirmed the everlasting covenant with his blood by dying on the cross, and the sacrificial system lost any and all prophetic significance. These prophecies reveal that Christ, the Messiah, would be crucified and cause the sacrificial system to cease its prophetic importance in the spring of AD 31. These predictions were fulfilled in every detail. Exactly at Passover, when the high priest was offering the Passover lamb, Christ was sacrificed for us. And so to finish today, with what has been written about in mind, read Mark 15:38 and Matthew 3:15 and 16. How do these verses help us understand the prophecy of Daniel 9:24 to 27? Mark 15 and verse 38. Then the veil of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. Matthew 3, beginning at verse 15. But Jesus answered and said to him, Permit it to be so now, for thus it is fitting for us to fulfill all righteousness. Then he allowed him. When he had been baptized, Jesus came up immediately from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove, and alighting upon him. And so once again we read Daniel 9, verses 24 to 27. 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublesome times. And after the 62 weeks Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with a flood, and till the end of the war desolations are determined. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abomination shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.